Hey everybody, Drew here, and today you are with me at my garage. We are going to change the fuel injectors on this 2004 to 2009 Toyota Prius. Hey, if you're watching this because you have that morning kind of like death knock thing, watch the video in the description. It talks about all the possible reasons that the second generation Prius can do that. There's also a link in the description for the third generation Prius, which is quite a bit different. But if you're watching this video because you have that sound and you're thinking it's fuel injectors, I just want to let you know, no promises, but in most cases, that's been what resolved the issue for me on many of these cars. So the tools you're going to need are a couple little picks. Those are to deal with wiring harnesses and O-rings. You are going to need an extension, a 3/8 socket. I love my DeWalt. They don't sponsor me. I wish they did because this thing changed my life. My little 3/8 drive impact. I also have a 3/8 ratchet that's electric that I might use as well. A 10mm socket, a 12mm socket, and this air tool. So that's actually the first thing we're going to do. The injectors are right there. You see that harness right there? That's for the number 4-cylinder injector. And what I like to do is get in here and like also turn it this way. And basically just get out any gunk that's in that fuel rail area so it doesn't fall into the motor. Next thing we're gonna do is take out the air box, which is pretty easy. There is a 10mm right here. You see why this thing is a life changer for me, right? Here. Whoop. There we go. Absolutely life changing. My elbows feel better. My wallet feels better because I work a little bit faster. This one's kind of tough to get to, but it's on the hose clamp for this guy. Might need to do that one off camera because it might require 2 hands. One moment. My other life changer, absolutely love this, gonna get the other sizes. It is a ratchet instead of an impact. And as you see, works extremely well. It's not as fast as the impact, which is why I spent the money on that as well. But now you're just gonna take off. It's kind of tough to do with one hand. There we go. Take that guy off there. And there is another one that I almost definitely won't be able to do on camera for you, and that is the hose clamp that is around the base that goes over the throttle body. Actually, never mind, because it looks like this one is already loose. There. Dead center of the screen is the nut that would loosen that if it was actually still tight, which it's not. You're not going to just go ahead and rip that off because we have to undo the mass airflow sensor here harness, which I'm just going to grab and a little bit stuck. There's that. Like I said, these little picks here, I'm going to get in there, open up that, and voila, that's off. Take this guy here, set it aside, and you are going to take a rag and put it in here so no debris gets in there, being extremely careful not to put any pressure on the plate that's inside of it. Now I grab my air tool again and I just go in here. Now, like anything I show you, it's for entertainment purposes only. Definitely wear safety glasses because stuff can fly up at you. Then finally, I like to spray a little brake cleaner in there, and this can get messy. Now, this next part, it's just a warning, is a little bit awkward because if you look under here, you see this loop that the fuel line goes through? It's part of the valve cover. So unless you take the valve cover off the motor, the fuel line really doesn't have much wiggle room. If you take off the windshield wipers, the top, the blades themselves, not in that order obviously, and the bottom tray, there's a 10mm nut or a bolt you could get to back there that'll loosen up the fuel line. But I've done this a number of times carefully, you know, without having to remove the fuel line. And I'm going to show you that. So we're going to lift these connectors, which are obviously have that there. You lift those off, and I just tuck them up in here like this. All of this is tough to do with one hand, so I apologize for my crazy camera work. Now, quite simply, these guys are 12 millimeters. When you take those off, the fuel rail is just gonna pop up off the injectors. Some of the injectors are gonna come with it, some are gonna stay down. Some of the ones that come up are going to bring their O-ring with them that's down in the block, or excuse me, in the manifold. Some are not. So just take off these 12 millimeter bolts and we'll go from there. This is one of my rebuilt injectors, so I have found it much better to use the old O-ring on the bottom here. They're orange, or just buy them from Toyota, but the ones that they put on these rebuilt units, at least the ones I get, are not as good. All right, so again, just take these off. And like I said, when you pull this fuel rail up, it's gonna leak gas everywhere. But Prius has like a bladder in the gas tank, and even if you run the car with the EFI fuse pulled or whatever, the car is going to die. You're going to get all kinds of crazy codes. It's just a very little bit of gas that comes out this way, and I don't think that taking any preventative measures is worth the effort or the consequences. So as you see there, all of my O-rings stayed in the block, or excuse me again, sorry, stayed in the intake manifold. So what we're going to do next is pull the injectors out. Number 4 is difficult, so you got to kind of like lift up on the fuel rail. You're going to put a little pressure on that line. You just don't want to bend it. So you're going to pull these out one by one. All right, so by the way, the fuel injectors obviously pulled down, like away from you, out of that the fuel rail there. The gas that did spill into the valley, I did my best to wipe up with a paper towel. The reality is this: you're gonna smell fuel after this job, so once we get it all back together, I'm gonna show you how to verify that you don't have a leak. But you're gonna smell fuel for a couple days till the smell burns off of the engine. Next is putting them back in. What I like to do is start put them into the orange or red, whatever you want to call that, O-rings first, of course with the harnesses in between the rail and the valve cover, and then again making sure that the new O-rings are wet, the ones that go up into the rail. You're going to line them up starting with 4 and then 3, 2, 1 and push the rail down onto it, making sure that these spacers here don't fall off. As you can see here, I have them all set in the engine. I just need to get them into the fuel rail. So what you're going to do again is very gently lift up on the fuel rail and wiggle around the 4th one here until it finds the hole underneath and pops into it a little bit, and then work your way down all the way to 1. And when you push down, it should find its way home with the fuel rail resting on this spacer here. Okay, so there was a little bit of wrestling, but again, I started by getting all of these into those O-rings that are on the engine, and then started with lubricated O-rings on the top of all these. Started with 4, which once that found its way home, it wasn't too bad. 3 was a little bit miserable, and I'm a little bit suspicious about it because it feels tighter than all the other ones. I actually took it out and re-lubricated the O-ring and put it back in, and it still does. And then, because see, they can kind of rotate, but number 3 feels like it doesn't want to. So that's the first one I'm going to go to if I have any issues with leaks. But as you see here, my the top of that spacer fits up into the hole on the fuel rail, and I've got both of those done. So then I'm just going to drop in my 12 millimeter headed bolts and very gently, certainly not going to over torque those. I'm sure there's a torque spec for it. Don't blame me for not using it, but I've done these a million times. Good and snug is all it needs. Now here's where the pain starts. So almost every time I've done this, I've had one that leaked after. I've had a lot better luck once I realized to, stick with the original O-rings that are in there. But you have to reconnect those harnesses, and you absolutely have to have the intake back in place, not necessarily screwed on, but back in place, and the MAF sensor plugged in. You don't need to worry about this guy. You don't need to worry about putting this wire back into that clip I showed you, but this needs to be on. The air cleaner needs to be on, and the MAF plugged in. And then when you start it, by the way, you're probably going to have a bunch of misfires and stuff like that. Once it levels out a little bit, give it some gas and see if it persists. But you know, the thing with these injectors, they're supposed to have like a fan, right, of fuel come out of them. I've actually hooked these up to cans of carburetor cleaner and powered them under pressure, and saw the old ones are like this weak little fork stream versus a new one, which is like a fan that's like this, you know what I mean, like versus just right. So the computer's used to really having to juice the things to get anything out of them. The new ones are going to be wide open, so it's going to take a second or two to calibrate. Again, we'll feather the gas and kind of get through that together, and then I'm going to show you guys how to check for leaks. All right, so again, be prepared for misfires, but start the car. Well, I guess mine didn't. Nope, there it just randomly died. That's better. Let's see. There we go. That's unfortunately starting at full throttle, and it's running a little bit rough. So what I'm gonna do is put mine in maintenance mode because it's warm out and it doesn't seem to need to run because it's already been running today. All right, maintenance mode, quite simple. Turn the car on, press the gas twice, put it in neutral, press the gas twice, put it in park, press the gas twice. It'll say problem up here, and then go ahead, hold the brake and press start, and it's gonna run the motor the whole time. Mine seemed to have calibrated fast, but now we got to check for leaks. And if we look right down in there, see all that? There is definitely gas spilling right in there. Right there. So unfortunately, that means messing around and finding which injector is not seated properly, which I believe to be number 3. So back to taking out this guy, which just simply take off the MAF sensor again, take this guy off, and see which one is leaking. And go figure, it is number 3. I could actually see and hear it. So just as I suspected when it didn't feel like it was fitting right, there's something up with the 3rd. Gonna mess with that and be right back with you. All right, so quite simply, I just switched out number 3's top O-ring with one of the old ones in hope that it's not too worn out. We're gonna start it again and check for leaks. The other thing I wanted to tell you is all you need is a standard short extension and a 10mm. I did put a little bit of torque down onto that bolt right down in there. I'm not sure if you can see that. It's rusty. It looks like my pinky's touching it. Now it's not. Touching it. Now it's not. You see it down in there with the little silver on it. So just threw a little bit of torque on that because you don't want an air leak, you know, below the mass airflow sensor. You don't want any air leak, but definitely not there if you did. I'm going to put this girl in maintenance mode again. Little misfires as it gets used to the new injectors. They're already gone in my case. That again, right there is where you will absolutely see gas leak. And I see gas leak. Fantastic. A little bit more playing with the injectors and we should be good. All right, so I went ahead and switched all my top O-rings back to the originals as well. I think it makes sense at this point because, you know, I've messed with O-rings so many times. And it seems the originals always work better. Go ahead and order before you do this job, and I'm gonna do it myself, put maybe 4 or 5 sets on my shelf of the original ones from Toyota. I'll try to put that part number in the description. But so I've got all my original O-rings back on. The area that we would be checking for gas, which is right there, is dry at the moment. I did also put a little bit of torque on this bolt right here. You see this loop right down past it, so going underneath the loop between the wiring harness and the loop, that's on the hose clamp that holds the intake down. There should not be an air leak there, especially. There shouldn't be an air leak anywhere, but just a simple short extension and a 10mm socket gets to that guy pretty easy. So I'm gonna go back in here, put the car in maintenance mode. It's gonna start now. Probably gonna misfire. Ooh, quite a bit. Wonderful. And it looks like we don't have any gas. Running super smooth. I'm gonna go give it a little bit of accelerator pedal just to make sure we don't have any leaks or any misfires off of idle, which we don't. I'm amazed at how many of these cars have seemed doomed and only needed new injectors. Or I should say their injectors rebuilt or professionally cleaned. And we've got no leaks. So, the takeaway from the video, which I really hope was helpful, is use Toyota original O-rings. Not necessarily your original O-rings, especially if they've got, 300,000 miles on them or whatever, but use the original O-rings. Other than that, this job was extremely straightforward. As you saw, it's a relatively short video. Really, all you truly need to do it is you can get by with a flat blade screwdriver instead of a pick, a 10 millimeter socket, a 12 millimeter socket, a long extension, a short extension, and a manual socket wrench. Very, very, very easy job. Again, no promises. If you're watching this and you have engine problems and this doesn't solve it, please understand that that was never the purpose of this video. Again, the link is in the description for all the possible reasons that can cause that on a 2004 to 2009 Prius. That morning death knock, misfires, etc. But this video is just to show you guys how quick and easy it is to change your injectors. Just throwing it out there, I would only ever use the original injector, which is made by Denso, and it says on it, you're not gonna be able to read it, but I can, 23250 21020. See if I can get that to zoom for you, not that it matters. But, I buy these professionally rebuilt for about 75 bucks a set, maybe 100 bucks a set now that the world's gone crazy with prices. Or you could buy them new, or you could rebuild your own. Point of the matter is, no engine's gonna run right if it's not getting fuel. Keep in mind the morning death knock that would be caused by fuel injectors, and again, please watch that whole video. But a car needs more gas when it's cold. That's effectively the choke, if you will, in a fuel injected car. It just injects in more fuel to control the ratio and make it, instead of like 14.7 to 1, maybe it's like 10 to 1, right? A lot more gas, a lot less air. Well, if the fuel injector can't provide that extra gas, the car's not going to run right. So, that's my reason for doing this job. And, again, I hope that if you're watching this and that's what you suspect, I hope this works out for you. If it doesn't, check that other video and feel free to reach out in the comments for guidance. I try to get back to them as soon as I can. Anyways, my name's Drew. I hope this video helped you. If it does, please give it a thumbs up. If you just found it entertaining, also a thumbs up. And please consider subscribing to the channel. We do a lot with Prius here. Not only repair videos, but starting to get into videos to kind of guide people on how to buy one, if they should buy one, which ones are the best, which ones to avoid, whether or not we'd still buy the ones that are, avoidable. And we also do some other cool stuff too, like we just imported this V8 Crown Majesta from Japan. As you can see, the steering wheel's on the other side. So we do some pretty cool stuff like that too. Big Toyota family here. We own a car dealership that specializes in older Prius and newer ones as well, but the older ones are the most sought after, so mostly those. Again, if that's something you're interested in, please hit that subscribe button, and thanks for watching. God bless you.